When you look at a massive skyscraper, a huge bridge, or a sprawling power plant, what's really holding it all together? Yeah, there's steel and concrete for sure. But there's also this invisible shield, right? A shield that protects it from total financial disaster. Well, today, we're going to decode that shield. Fidic's Clause 19 on insurance.
I mean, really, think about it. What stands between a project and a devastating fire, a freak flood, or even a critical design flaw that nobody saw coming? What's the real safety net here? Well, the answer is a solid, well-thought-out insurance framework, and that is exactly what we are breaking down today.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into why insurance is the ultimate safety net for any project. Then, we'll get into the basic ground rules that apply to everything. After that, we'll unpack the 5 essential policies every single project needs. We'll also get crystal clear on who's responsible for what, the employer versus the contractor. And finally, we're going to wrap it all up with this super practical checklist just for you engineers out there on the ground.
So, let's start with the big question. Why does Clause 19 even exist? Look, it's not just another piece of boring paperwork. It is the financial backbone that prevents a single accident, a fire, a flood, from bankrupting a massive project. It's what ensures that no matter what happens, the job can actually get finished. This quote from the Fidic guide it nails it. The main goal here isn't just about getting a check to pay for some damage. It's about making sure the contractor has the financial muscle to weather any storm and, most importantly, finish the job. It's all about protecting the project's future. Okay, so with that big idea in mind, let's start laying the foundation. We're going to look at the general requirements that apply to every single insurance policy that falls under Clause 19. So, here are the ground rules. First off, the contractor, it's their job to get and maintain all the required insurance. Simple enough. But they can't just pick any old policy off the shelf. The employer has to give the thumbs up on both the insurance company and the specific terms. And think of these requirements as just the minimum. A smart contractor might want to add more coverage on their own dime. Of course, you need proof, so the contractor has to be ready to show the policy documents and the payment receipts whenever asked. Now, what if they don't? Well, the employer can step in, get the insurance themselves, and then just deduct the cost. And this last one is so important. It's a team sport. Both parties must play by the policy's rules. If they don't, the whole thing could be worthless. All right, now let's get into the specifics. Fidic doesn't just vaguely say, hey, get some insurance. Nope. It lays out 5 key policies that act like these pillars of protection for the project. Each one covers a different, totally critical area of risk. So let's break them down. Pillar number 1, and this is the big one, is the insurance for the works. This policy is the absolute core protection for the project itself. We're talking about coverage for the actual physical thing being built, all the materials waiting to be used, and even the contractor's design documents. Now, this policy isn't messing around. It has to cover the full replacement value. That means everything, from the materials on site to the digital design files. It even covers damage that happens because of a design defect. Plus, it has this extra buffer, usually around 15%, to cover all the extra costs, like demolition and hiring new professionals. And here is a super critical detail. The policy has to be in the joint names of both the contractor and the employer. That way, both sides are protected and can make a claim, which avoids a huge mess over who gets the payout. Okay, our second pillar is insurance for goods. Really, this is all about protecting the tools of the trade. It covers the contractor's equipment and all the other stuff they bring to the site. The machinery, the cranes, the temporary offices, all the things that are essential to build the project, but aren't actually going to be part of the final structure. Pillar number 3 is liability for breach of professional duty. Honestly, you can just think of this as mistake insurance for the design. In any contract where the contractor is doing the design work, this professional indemnity policy is there to cover them if there's an error or something they missed in their plans that causes a problem later on. Next up, Pillar 4. This one is all about protecting you from claims by third parties. This is basically your public liability insurance. It's what covers the project's liability if, heaven forbid, someone from the general public gets hurt or if you damage a neighboring property. It's for anyone who isn't directly part of your team or the project itself. And our 5th and final pillar is injury to employees.
This is absolutely essential. It's the coverage for your workforce. It protects the contractor from liability for any claims that come from an injury, sickness, or, in the worst case, the death of any of their own people while they're working on the project.
Okay, so we've covered the why and the what of all this insurance. Now, let's get down to the who. Who is actually responsible for making all this stuff happen? Let's break down the specific roles of the employer and the contractor.
As you can see, the contractor really has the active role here. They're the ones doing the legwork, finding the policies, paying for them, and keeping the insurers updated. The employer's role is more about oversight. They're the gatekeeper, approving the terms, and they have the power to step in if the contractor drops the ball. But look at that last row. That's the real key. Compliance is a shared responsibility. If either party breaks the rules of the policy, that insurance could become totally worthless for everyone involved.
All right, let's pull all of this out of the contract and into the real world. To finish up, I want to give you some practical, actionable advice. This is for all you engineers and project managers on site who have to make sure this stuff actually happens the right way. Here it is, your blueprint for action, a super simple 3-step checklist. First, verify. Before a single shovel hits the ground, you need to confirm that all the policies are active and that the employer has approved them. Don't ever, ever assume. Second, submit. Get on top of that paperwork. Get copies of the policies and every single payment receipt over to the employer right away. And third, notify. You know projects change. If the scope shifts, if the timeline gets extended, you have to tell the insurers immediately. If you fail on that last step, your entire policy could be voided. So remember it. Verify, submit, notify. So I'll leave you with this one last thought to take to your own projects. The contract is signed, the team is ready to go, the equipment is rolling in. But is your safety net actually in place? Is it secure? Because as we've seen today, the entire point of Clause 19 is to make sure that the answer to that question is always, always yes.